right, so Ronnie is going to talk to us about one of the best. This bait's about to come into play, and when it does, it'll be here for a while. It's one of the best fall baits you can throw. It's kind of forgotten, so listen up because it's going to be good.
So we're going to talk about spinnerbait fishing. Fall spinnerbait fishing, not necessarily summer or anything like that. So in the fall, and I would love to hear some of your input because I know you've got a lot. In dock fishing and spinnerbait fishing in the fall, they can kind of coincide a lot. So I'm going to talk to you guys first about what I'm going to be throwing and why I'm going to be throwing it. I'm going to throw a pretty big spinnerbait. And the reason is, and again, I'm getting ahead of us, okay? I'm trying to prepare myself mentally and maybe you guys as well for what's coming, not what's happening. What Billy's talking about is what's happening. It's in fact, if I weren't in the guide position where I've got two guys back here that got to fish, then dock fishing for me would be probably one of my biggest go-tos right now. If I were having to come out here on my own, I would definitely take everything he said and go out.
Dock fishing is a tough deal with customers. Like, I don't ever do it with my customers.
No, guys, it's tough for a guy to do it.
You just can't have the boat positioned at all times where everybody can access the dock.
And by the time I've already worked the dock over, they're not going to catch anything. It's my casting accuracy and my good look. And I showed you my casting.
Who was it that fishes their guide trips like a tournament day?
You.
Okay.
I don't catch them all. I'm just, as long as he's got 5 and I got 6, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, of course. So in the fall of the year, the bait fish are at their biggest. Okay, the gizzard shad especially will start to move to the back of the creeks. Everything's moving to the back of the creeks. And just like Billy said, you're looking for changes. And so we're going to talk specifically about spinnerbaits. And excuse me. I hope I didn't need that poster board.
Oh, I used it all up, man.
You think your drawing's bad? Mine would be way worse.
Tonight.
So I brought these. I was just in a hurry and I brought these. And I brought these, and these are a little bit heavier. But this is a good size, and this is a great color. This is called Red River Special by Santone Lures, and these are the spinnerbaits I throw. And this is just a great shad imitation bait here. This is good for clearer water, maybe not the clearest water. I grabbed you guys this spinnerbait right here, which is a really natural shad color. Towards the fall, a lot of the water starts to get pretty clear. The summer, if you guys are noticing right now, I know. The other night, my wife somehow convinced me to get out into Lake Fork and go swimming after she had a couple of whiskey drinks. And so I went out there and went swimming with her. And the sun was actually coming down, and we were like chest deep in water, and I could see my feet. So the water's got a little bit of clarity to it. And of course, as the turnover happens, and some of the water will kind of stain up a little bit and stuff. But some of the creeks, especially any creeks that have a good grass, and when I say good grass, I hate coontail, but if they have a milfoil or they have a hydrilla in them, they're going to start to clear up. So those colors are really good. Otherwise, I just don't know that there's a better color out there in the world than white and chartreuse for a spinnerbait. Now, again, these are really big number 5 willow leaf blades. Now, if I'm in a little bit clearer water, I might opt for a number 4 with a number 3, both tandem nickel, the silver if I'm in clear water. But if I'm in a little bit of stained water and I'm throwing the 1/2 ounce, which is going to be this spinnerbait right here, this is good old faithful, just good old white spinnerbait, I'm going to probably have a number 5 and a number 4, and I'm going to do a nickel gold tandem combo on a 1/2 ounce. This right here in a white and chartreuse, this right here at Lake Fork is going to be my go-to spinnerbait in a 1/2 ounce. Now, again, I'm letting you guys know this is a little bit bigger. This is a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait. I prefer a 1/2 ounce. Now, going into fall, I like to do one other little thing, and that's put a trailer on there. Where are my trailers at? I must have left them.
I'm gonna. It's funny how you said earlier how we see a lot of things the same way, but we see some things differently. And this deal right here, you're talking about down the road in the fall. And that's a little different scenario than coming out of summer in the early part of fall.
And I know where you're going.
There's a unique thing that happens. There you go. That's right where I'm going. There's a unique thing that happens in the early part of fall. Shad spawn back in April, May, whatever. Well, there's a lot of shad in the lake that were born in the spring. They're starting to get about that big right there. Right? Now I'll also throw right now. The first deal to me is a 1/4 ounce lipless crankbait, 1/4 ounce rattle trap.
Yeah.
I'm throwing that right now. Just started throwing it this week. It's on my boat. I'm throwing it every day right now. And that deal is kind of good when the water's still real hot. But as that water first starts to cool down and those fish really start to push into the mouths of the creeks, and they haven't really made it all the way back yet, but there's some of them starting to get back there. The first half of fall, I would say, a small spinnerbait, and I'm saying small. I don't mean light. I don't
You mean a 1/4 ounce type?
It could be a 1/4 ounce.
3/8
It could be
5/16.
I'll even take a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait and put little bitty blades on it and trim the skirt real short,
a little bit.
so it has the small bait fish profile, but I'm moving it real fast. Because once we start cooling these water temps off and these fish start to migrate into these creeks in a major way, they're there for one reason, and they're hunting and they're chasing, and things are moving pretty quick. Things are fired up, especially in the first half of fall. These fish are moving fast, Jack. And so I'll take, a 3/8 ounce or sometimes a 1/2 ounce, usually a 3/8 ounce with little bitty blades. You can burn it real quick.
Yeah.
And so I'll take a 3/8 ounce spinnerbait, trim the skirt real short, get these little bitty blades on there like that right there. And that is, I can't tell you how many big fish. I mean, the longest fish I've ever caught in my life. Now, this fish was old and didn't have much weight on it. But the biggest frame, the longest fish, I caught 27 inches and change.
Holy cow.
On the littlest, I mean, the whole spinnerbait, blades and skirt and head would all fit right here in the palm of my
What
hand.
kind of spinnerbait was it?
It was a Sandtone.
Oh, really? Got 5?
Mm-hmm. It was a Sandtone, got 5 3/8 ounce, and I put the smallest little blade I could find on it, and I was just getting after it. KVD.
Yeah, and that's where I was going.
But it's just unique because
That's where I
there's
was
baby
going.
shad in the lake, and the lake right now is chock full. Like if you go back in shallow
Flicker
water where
minnows.
there's grass, you'll see the minnows, but you'll see the little silver ones that are a little bit taller, and they're baby shad that were born in the spring, and they're just that big. And man,
And I call those flicker minnows, ghost minnows, glass minnow, all these little, what I call flicker shad, the small bait fish that you're seeing flickering around. And that's exactly why I brought this with me, is to kind of go to that. And on this, so what I was talking about trailers, and what I like to do is I use a 4-inch Kitech impact shad, not the fat impact shad though. So we're all used to throwing like the Smash Tail or the Smash Tail Junior, which has got a little bit fatter head.
yeah, the Kitech has the fat. It's called fat impact. It's got
Yeah,
big.
that's the fat impact. I like the regular impact on my spinnerbaits, which is a little bit
got
thinner
blade.
profile. It's kind of like a ringworm with a paddle tail, and I think that's a great spinnerbait trailer.
Swim and Cinco is another good one.
Swim Cinco is a great one. The list could go. A single tail grub's a great one.
Yep.
But this is later in the fall. Now, what I'm tying on now, and I'm glad Billy brought that up because he is dead on. And this is something that I know that he does a lot.
What color?
Sir? On the swim bait?
On the tail.
The tail, yeah. I'm gonna throw some kind of a shad. I like chartreuse shad in the color, electric shad, some kind of a shad color. Now, if I'm in a little bit dirtier stained water, one thing that I might do, now, I'm probably not gonna find any areas around here unless we get a lot of rain, but I'll go to painted blades and I might get a white chartreuse or a solid white trailer. May even put a little chartreuse on the tail. That's going to be something that you as a fisherman have got to kind of figure out on your own.
And that's kind of a unique deal for this time of year, because right now, this time of year, when you get to the end of summer and the early fall, and you're fishing the little profile ones, the water is usually about as clear as it gets for the whole year.
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Is how clear the water
Yeah.
is. And and so I had this tied on earlier, and right now I'm gonna say exactly what he said. I'm throwing a Sandtone Got 5 spinnerbait, a small profile spinnerbait, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You can go for the big or you can go for the small. This bait right here, this big 1/2 ounce tandem willow blade spinnerbait, when the fish start to migrate to the back of the channels, there's going to be times, and I use this time of year because teal season. How many of you guys duck hunt? Freaking, y'all lose your mind when you start duck hunting. We're all friends today, but we won't be September 15th because you think we can see you camouflaged. If the duck can't see you, I promise I can. People pop up, hey, don't you see me hunting here? I'm like, I still don't see you hunting there. I hear you, but I don't see you. We were at Falcon, and they were duck hunting at Falcon this year. And these dudes were in the Falcon's a little sketch because of the cartel situation. And my customer thinks that that bank right there is America, and this bank right here is Mexico. Have I told you the story? This dude pops up solid camo and goes, "Hey, we don't want to shoot you." And I go, "That's all right. Hey, we'll shoot back." And my customer looks at me as dead serious. He goes, "Why the would you say that to him?" And I was like, "Oh no." I'm like, "What?" I feel like I just broke somebody's vase in the middle of their living room. Like, what did I do? Well, he thought that guy was like in Mexico, and it was like a cartel guy saying that to me. But it was a duck hunter, and so the middle of September, the teal season starts. I always, we have all these little things. These tournaments, me and Billy talk pretty much every day, and a lot of times we'll talk about what's coming up. And it'll be based on a certain event, maybe the Berkeley tournament, McDonald's tournament, Skeeter Owners, and I will start to think about, hey, what I've done here before, and of course our minds aren't like people that are traveling fishing different lakes. We're thinking Lake Fork 99.9% of the time. And so we're thinking about stuff we've done in the past, with the lake level was up, 2010, stuff like that. So right now I'm thinking, man, teal season's coming upon us, and the duck hunters are going to come in here and they're going to screw all my stuff up. And I can remember times recently, of course you got to understand with me as well, I had a transition period where I wasn't fishing a little bit. And so the last fall, I didn't really fish real hard, 2018. So this fall, I'm going to be fishing every single day. And so I'm thinking about teal season. When the duck hunters come in and the spinnerbait bite is unfreaking believable. And why the spinnerbait bite's so good. The backs of the creeks and pinch points, and funnel points, and creek bends. And it's all about the shad moving in and out. And I think a lot of times when we have cooler nights, the shad will start to move out. And as that sun comes up, those shad will start to move in. And we start to have little funnel points, little pinch points. Maybe it's a creek bend. Maybe it's an area similar to Glade where you've got a series of islands that have a little channel in between them, a drain, if you will. Maybe it's the back of a creek. Maybe it's a row of docks that have a creek in a major creek. There's a feeder creek that goes in and it's a row of docks. And that area creates a funnel point or a pinch point, and in turn creates ambush points for bass. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at. Now we've got the bait. We've got a half ounce spinnerbait up to, I don't really throw a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait shallow. A half's kind of about as big as I'll go. I'm throwing 17 to 20 pound test, and I throw 20 a lot. And Kevin Van Dam one time said something that was pretty good. He goes, on a moving bait, it doesn't make sense to throw smaller line unless you're trying to get it deep. And he's right. So a lot of times out here, if I'm throwing a spinnerbait, I'm throwing 17 to 20 pound test.
Well, especially on a bait like a spinnerbait that's got one single hook.
Yeah, in 17, maybe I throw it a little bit more than 20 just because of castability. It's not quite as thick, it's a little bit more limp. I'm throwing Seagar fluorocarbon line, which has got a lot of memory. I don't throw braid. The only reason I don't throw braid is, well, two reasons. Number one, I don't want the noise, which I don't think is a big deal. But number two, I don't want to tear my spinnerbait up after one fish. The braid has so little stretch that when I catch a fish on it, it's bent my wire all to heck. Same thing with a buzzbait. Santone makes a braid buzzbait. I don't typically throw that one. But after a bass gets a buzzbait 2 or 3 times, a lot of times, if it's not a quality buzzbait, then they'll tear it up. And spinnerbaits more especially. If you hook a 4, 5, 6 pound bass and you've got 50 pound braid and you've got a decent 7-foot medium heavy action rod and he's going crazy, that spinnerbait's probably toast.
Yeah. And the thing about spinnerbaits is the best ones are made with thinner gauge wires and it makes them vibrate better. So a lot of the spinnerbaits that are popular that work really well, they hold up the worst to that situation.
And we talk about tuning crankbaits a lot, but people don't really talk about tuning spinnerbaits, and so I'll explain exactly how you tune a spinnerbait. The one of the most important parts of any moving bait is that it's running correctly. Billy was talking about docks, and that's something that at times fishermen, especially some of these guys that are pretty serious dock fishermen, will tend to tune their crankbaits to where they'll move a buzzbait. Something that I will 100% of the time I'm manipulating my buzzbait, whether I want to fold the blades in to make it run faster or out to make it run slower, or whether I want to tune it to make it run left or tune it to make it run right to hit stumps or something like that. Same with the crankbait. On a spinnerbait, 100% of the time I want my spinnerbait to run perfectly straight. So the first thing that I'm going to look at is where my wire meets my head. I need to look at that with the shank of my hook. And those two things, when I line those two things up, they need to be perfectly in line. That's number one. Number two is the arm of the spinnerbait. It needs to be perfectly in line with this right here and the shank of my hook. And the best way to do that is just to move it left or right, and then to pull your spinnerbait down and make sure it's right there at the tip of your hook. The other thing is, I don't want my spinnerbait to be real wide. I don't want it to be real narrow where it's hitting my hook. I want it to be just kind of a perfect in between, which is going to be something like this. You know, one thing that Billy said earlier is the profile of spinnerbait. This number 5 willow leaf blade, I will change out at times. I will go to a number 4, or if I've got a 3 up here like this one, I might even put a tandem number 3 blades. So everything's kind of, you know, everything's at the same profile. I'm essentially presenting them 3 different bait options. You know, trimming down the skirt. Maybe I don't put a trailer on there if I'm trying to do something a little bit smaller.
Yeah, speaking of that, you know, on the one that we're doing right now, the smaller one, and I know you were talking about putting the little contact on there. When I'm going for the small bait deal that's happening right now, I never, ever, ever put a trailer on there because I'm already presenting them a little shad in the skirt and 2 little shad in the blades, and I don't need that bottom one to look bigger. I'm trying to imitate small bait fish. And so I never put a trailer on it. But when I go to these later in the fall, I always put a trailer.
And see that, and I do like a trailer. You know, I like a small, thin, just something that gives it a natural look. You know, and I think it's kind of like when you talked about baits on dock fishing. You know, it's kind of one of them deals where a lot of it has to do with what you throw, what your style is, what your, you know, a jig's great, but there's guys that like a Texas rig crawworm, and they can kind of get down and dirty on that crawworm in those docks. And another thing is the retrieve on a spinnerbait. I'm going to throw a 6:4 gear ratio reel on my rod here that I'm throwing is a 7-foot, 1-inch medium heavy action rod. It's a great rod for short roll cast, making pinpoint accurate cast. We've got a lot of timber. We're looking for a lot of fish that are in grass, maybe dock fishing. I want to make really accurate casts. I don't want to go with a heavy action rod. I want something that's got a little bit of tip where I can make an accurate cast. And it also gives those bass the opportunity to get that bait in their mouth before it rips it out. On my retrieve, again, 6:4 reel. Some guys probably throw a 7. I know some, especially what Billy's talking about, burning it in. You know, and you remember the Strike King burner? So Strike King KVD had
a heavy head with little blades.
And it is, and they're like a mix between 3 and 4. They're their own blades. They're a narrow blade. And that's a unique spinnerbait. That's a really good spinnerbait. But something like that, you might go to a 7/4 reel or something.
You know,
like
I've kind of adopted and I know you're probably going to say that ain't the right way to do it. Most people probably would too. But man, I've gotten to the point now where I do just about every single thing on a 7-to-1 type reel. And if I need to, I just force myself to slow down.
Yeah, you know, I've got all the way from 5s up to 8s in my boat, but you know, I've also got 37 different hooks. I probably got a little bit more complicated than I need. And
you might have got overserved at the tackle shop.
Yeah, they might have got me. They seen me coming. They got me when I had my wallet. But I like that 6-speed reel. You know, it allows me to move a little bit slower at times.
Certainly makes it easier when you want to slow down.
And the other thing is with a spinnerbait, you know, a swim bait and a spinnerbait are essentially the same thing, but 2 totally different baits. I consider a swim bait a natural bait and a spinnerbait a completely, it's a trick bait.
More of a reaction.
It doesn't look like a fish, but you want it to. And so when I'm throwing a swim bait, I'm gonna swim it pretty steady. I want them to get a good look at it. I want them to see it. I want them to track it. I want them to eat it. Spinnerbait, I don't really want them to see it real well because it doesn't actually look like a fish. So whereas when I'm throwing a swim bait, I'm giving a steady retrieve. When I'm throwing a spinnerbait, I'm getting a steady retrieve and I'm popping. And I might, you know, do the old Bill Wilcox.
Do you bang the blades? I'll throw a spinnerbait, I'll go pop, pop, and it makes those 2 blades just slap each other. It makes a little noise.
Yeah, you could do the old Bill Wilcox. Y'all know what I'm doing. Look like he's got Tourette's. You know, but you definitely want to vary.
I think caught a lot of fish doing that.
I know. So, anyways, that's kind of the where, the what. Any spinner, and I know spinnerbait fishing seems simple, but when we get into the fall and the shad, they start to feed up. And there are times where I've gone to the back of creeks at Lake Fork, at Lake Palestine, And I compare those two because they're pretty similar. And it's on. It's like it's on. That spinnerbait is where you're going to catch your biggest bag of bass. You know, you need something moving fast enough to get them to react. You need something big enough, and you need to imitate shad because first thing in the morning, those shad are pushing in a funnel area, and those bass are gorging up. You know, and they start to look like they did back in February again.
I'll tell you one thing about this lake this year, man. Golly, there is some healthy fish for the end of August. And I'm talking about shallow water, deep water, main lake, backs of creeks, all. You'll catch some that are thinned out, summertime looking fish, but most of the fish that we're catching right now, these fish, I think maybe because the water temps never got as high as they normally do or whatever, but man, they have done really well. So as we go into fall and they really start feeding, like, you're going to catch fish got stretch marks on their belly this year, Jack. And to your point about spinnerbait fishing being real simple, but then in the fall it gets real precise, more so, way more so than any other time of year, during the fall, these fish will get locked in on a particular style, size, and type of bait fish.
100%.
A lot of your offshore fish will get so locked into them yellow bass. If you ain't throwing a flutter spoon that looks like a yellow bass, you ain't got a chance to catch them. And you ain't going to catch but just a few of them on that flutter spoon because they're locked into the real deal. And there's so many of them out there. And it's the same deal with this shad deal. When these shad migrate in these creeks and these bass that follow those and fall up into the creeks. If you're not throwing a crankbait, a spinnerbait, a something bait that's the right profile and looks an awful lot like the bait fish they're eating, you can be around all the fish in the world and not get a single bite. I mean, they get locked in the fall for whatever reason. I think it's because that's all they're doing.
Hatch.
That's all they're doing. In the fall, they're only doing one thing. They're just there to feed, and that's it.
The night spinnerbait thing, can you talk about that? Because, you know, I've tried it a couple times, and I've heard people swear by it, and I just don't
I think the night spinnerbait deal is all about movement. It's all about vibration. And I think a chatterbait outfishes a spinnerbait at night.
I would agree that a black chatterbait has kind of superseded the black spinnerbait at night for me as well. But it does. There are some people that catch them on it, and basically what you want to get is you want to get a spinnerbait that vibrates as hard as you can possibly get it. You want, like the old Hildebrands were really good. Joe Spates used to make one down the road that was really good, and it's a light wire with a real big Colorado blade, single Colorado blade, and it just vibrates real hard. And that's all you're doing. And a chatterbait, boy, it vibrates real hard and it makes noise with the blade on the head, so it's kind of a better deal. But gang, Jeffrey?
Nighttime spinnerbaits, MJ trailers.
MJ trailers?
The MJ spinners.
Oh, on the back of the worms? You talking about worms?
No, on the spinnerbait.
On the spinnerbait. I'm unfamiliar. That's the deal, though.
Those ones I gave you?
Yeah.
Put it on a spinnerbait.
On a spinnerbait.
And when you hit it, oh my God.
And on the chatterbait, I'm usually throwing a rage crawl or a rage lobster.
Yeah.
You know,
at night.
Yeah, at night. If there's grass around there, like if I want some good grass, I'll throw up to a 3/4 ounce chatterbait with a rage lobster and just fish as slow as I can. And I mean, it's like, it's a swim bait bite essentially. They take the rod out of your hand. There's no question about it. And I've had some of the best nights fishing of my life with a chatterbait.
I noticed that there's different colors in frogs too. I like as natural as you can get it.
Well, them fishing companies got to have a lot of different options, so you'll buy a lot of stuff.
I buy a lot of frogs. I'm at like almost $500 on the year.
Oh Lord.
I know.
Yeah, that's too.
I got one white one with black dots. I got
Yeah, let me tell you what you
all
need.
kinds of colors.
Let me tell you what you need. You need white, you need black, and you need some kind of natural brown or green or yellow type color. That's really all you need. He's got a one-off that I've started throwing a lot this year that's like a silver and blue, and it's a really good all-around color. You can kind of throw it year-round, but I mean, just for your basics to get started and just know what you need, white, black, and some type of natural frog color, and you're good to go.
Okay.
That natural frog color imitates a brim.
My favorite colors are White Monster, Cowboy, Brother Speck, and then I got a new one here. I can't tell y'all yet, but I got a new one that's pretty good. It's top secret.
What about Old Red?
Old Red is the deal. Shh. This dude right here.
My bad, homie.
Golly, man.
Any more questions? Anybody else got anything? No? Well, y'all have been an outstanding audience tonight. I think everybody stayed to the very end. I know it's been a long one. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We want to thank Lake Fork Marina, and we will be right back here in 2 weeks, so please come join us. Thanks, guys.